Hello, everybody. It's Dr. Bergina. How are you doing? I am always excited. Well, not always. I'm not always excited. When I'm doing interviews, I'm excited because of the people that I get to interview. So who am I? I'm Dr. Bergina, and what I do is I help people transform their lives by developing a mindset for growth and for success. And I have had a wonderful opportunity within the last few years to be able to interview folks. So just a really quick background on me. I'm a mom, and I happen to be a psychiatrist, which is a mental health physician. And I happen to also have children with a variety of special needs. And I thought, you know what, if I'm trained in this and I've got literally decades of training under my belt, and I still struggle as a parent every day to make sure I'm doing the right things and I'm providing an environment for my kids to feel safe, healthy, and functional, what about parents and colleagues of mine and therapists and other folks who may not have the training that I have? What's going on with them? Do they have the resources that they need? And that is where the Autism Alignment Movement was birthed. So this interview series that you're seeing right now is a part of the Autism Alignment Movement. So in addition to my hat as a psychiatrist, in addition to my hat as a mom of kids with special needs, I also lead that organization of other parents and professionals whose sole goal is to be able to provide resources for folks like you. And so as a part of this series, I get to interview someone who is absolutely phenomenal. I am interviewing the creator of Paxton the Prairie Dog. Say hi, Paxton. Hi, how are you? So you're about to meet Paxton's mom / creator. And we're going to talk to her about the fact that she is an author. Let's just look. I'm just going to bend down and get the books here. She is an author at least 8 times over. And I thought I was doing pretty well, but at least 8 times over. We've got so many different Paxton stories, and we're going to learn today about where Paxton came from. These are just a couple of her creations, including Micah Mink Goes to a Concert and The Camping Trip. We got our bright lights here, so I want to make sure you can see these. Liliana Moves to the Country. And these are just the 3 that I purchased. They're just a couple. But when I saw her table and I saw all of the wonderful, lovely things that she had, I just had to have her on. So I'm going to partially introduce and allow her to finish the introduction. So please help me welcome author Margie Harding. Margie, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate it.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. I am also a mom. I have 5 children. None of them were special needs. I didn't get involved in special needs until, well, it was a God thing. And I am delighted to be a part of being able to share these books.
That's wonderful. So you say you don't.
Where Paxton comes.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, we were talking about where Paxton came from, but no, I don't have any children that are special needs. And I wasn't involved in school. I was not involved in special needs. That didn't come until later.
So how did it come about?
Actually, what happened, and asked me, he says, have you ever thought about writing a book using animals? And I'm going, nope. Well, he said, you should think about it. So my daughter and I threw some ideas around for a plan. As the book evolved, the first one we did was called Paxton's World on Fire, and is the only book that does not have special need in it. And it talks about how there's a big forest fire and all the animals work together to get themselves safe and secure out away from the fire. Well, I created, Glow has a baby early because of the fire. Well, because of that circumstance, we wrote the second one was early Ronnie's. And the second one was born because Carmelita has asthma. So we talked about the smoke and not that smoke causes asthma, can be a trigger for us. Lita was born, and we did the big race, and we talk about the problems of having asthma. Well, I still don't know that I really thought of special needs. But I've always said that since this has started, that God's got a sense of humor, because like I said, I had 5 children. None of them were special needs. I wasn't involved in special needs at all. I always said it took someone special to grant. It's not. God's got a sense of humor, and I'm right in the middle of special needs, and I am positively delighted. And my writing goal has always been to do something fun. And, you know, if this is what God wants me to do, then I am delighted with it. And if it makes a difference, then I fulfilled my mission.
I think that's beautiful. And I will tell you that as part of your mission, I'm one of the recipients, because 2 of the books that you wrote about, I actually happen to have children who have both of those concerns. And that's why I bought these 2, particularly. The other I bought for a friend. But Micah Mink Goes to a Concert is a discussion about Micah, who has autism, which my son has a diagnosis of autism. And it's really neat because what I think is so very, very wonderful is there are oftentimes in the public arena where we see people with autism that have very high functioning autism. And there are lots of programs and there's lots of information about people that are very high functioning. The Good Doctor is a show that's come out recently talking about that. But I really appreciate it, particularly because I have a child who is mostly nonverbal, or initially nonverbal. I appreciate the fact that he very much fits closer to this type of child. Now, and the saying is, if you've seen one child with autism, you've seen one child with autism. But in terms of spectrum, my child is closer to this part of the spectrum. So what inspired you to write about this version of a child with autism?
Well, I did a lot of research, and I will tell you, again, because I don't have personally that have special needs, it requires a great deal of research. So I read a lot, and that one just touched my heart. And a lot of moms share their stories, and I'm able to, thankfully, be able to pull from that information to create the stories that I write. It's of other moms.
And the mom in the camping trip, actually it's a dad. The mom is featured in Micah Mink. Micah's mom is featured here. Right. But in the camping trip, there's actually several chaperones, including moms and dads. And I think it's interesting because the moms in the book, at least the moms that I've read about, are the typical that most people think of when they think of moms with special needs. Super patient, super caring, super, you know, just that persona. And I thought it was interesting because in the camping trip, the parent that accompanies our little friend in the camping trip, I think it's Brody Badger and Brock and his dad, Brock Badger. So it's so neat that you feature a dad, okay, because we sometimes don't hear about the dads, the special needs dads. So that's really neat. And I think Brock is he's a pretty typical dad. You know, when Brody, who has autism, has a diagnosis of ADHD, wanders off, there's one point where Mr. Brock says, "That boy, what's going on with that boy?" I have to find it, but I was rereading it to the kids, and there's just a part where he's just like, what's going on with this little boy? Which is so much more of I think a kind of a dad thing. I mean, I know we moms do it too, but you know, when I hear dads talking about this, when I hear dads who have kids with special needs, they're much more like, what is going on? Like, not in a bad way, but just, what are you thinking, little boy? But it's very real. The parents in these books are real.
Well, I'm glad it reads that way. I'm grateful.
It does. It very much does. Now, my daughter has a diagnosis of ADHD, so that's why this resonated with me. But the extra gem that I found, like I said, was reading the parent stories. Can you give us an idea of some of the other areas? Of course, it's on your site, and if you go to Amazon, your books are available on Amazon, correct?
And where else can they find them? Is that what your question?
Yes. Where else can they find the books if they want to know more about some of the characters?
Okay, my personal website is www.freeze.com. It's funny, again, Paxton actually shows up in every single book. That wasn't, I don't know, that wasn't really planned. It just kind of worked out that way. Sometimes it's just a cameo, but he does show up in all. So it's Paxton series. And we actually have the books in toddler form. We are very slowly putting all the books will be in toddler form as well, which is kind of cool because I had a lot of people ask for a version, and I will tell you, it's a lot easier to expound on the subject than it is to cut one down so it still makes sense. So it's about words for 2 and 3 year olds, and also now, which again, it's been the transition. It's been a lot to get done. But aside from, again, Amazon and then my store, and then of course when you go to Amazon places to get them too, but that's primarily where you will find them.
Okay, and I'm just going to show, this is just from one, just for those who are visual. I don't know if it's going to show up backwards or not. It shows it backwards for me, but hopefully it shows up okay for you guys.
Okay.
It's good. Okay, so here's some of the other books. So of course, like Margie was just saying, Paxton's World on Fire was the first one. And then, of course, The Early Arrival, got our little preemie, and then the asthma book following that. And here's a couple of others: hearing loss, Down syndrome, autism, dyslexia, muscular dystrophy, juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And I already mentioned the one on ADHD is not listed here, but there's a website, www.paxtonseries.com. And I do have the other book on Down syndrome, Liliana Moves to the Country. Again, as I mentioned, a friend of mine whose daughter has Down syndrome, which I thought was really interesting because you actually really, again, you mentioned the research. You really broke down Down syndrome in, I think, a very child-friendly way, but also a way that adults could understand. I'm trying to find the picture here, which I thought was really neat. It was a neat picture of the chromosomes. The fact that children with Down syndrome have 47 chromosomes instead of 46. I'll find it. But for those who are watching, who are interested in being an author, could you talk more about the author journey, including the research that goes into the books, the publishing of the books?
Well, I have an amazing publisher who is also very supportive of the project. That helps a great deal. As an author, for me, is up to like 60 something at this point. So it's kind of picking and choosing. Thank you. Yes, that's in the book. That's to break it down so the kids can see what it looks like. Yeah. But as an author, the idea of being able to just put something on paper, that makes sense. But something that is so important as children's needs. Once I choose the topic that I'm going to work with, then it requires the research first and foremost, because I want to make sure that while it's a fiction story where we use animals, I want the information about the special need to be factual and to be accurate. But I don't want it to read like an encyclopedia. So it requires taking the information that I read and breaking it down so it makes sense. And then I have to work at making a plot using all this information, which is where all the blogs come in. I'm able to read a variety of blogs and compile the information, and using the medical information and then just forming the story from that. Sometimes I get it right away as a plot that makes sense. Other times I may stew about it for 2 months. And then all of a sudden my husband laughs at me because we'll be going down the road and I get excited. I'm going, oh my goodness. And I'll grab a paper or a pencil or a computer or whatever, and write the plot down, of what is going to happen, the main scene that begins the process of telling what happens. It's so important not to have a cookie cutter story. I don't want all the stories to be the same. So it's important that whomever is telling about what's wrong, what the issue is, I don't want it to always be the doctor. I don't want it always to be mom or dad, which is why, like with Micah Mink, I had the sister who has a brother that has autism. So I want it to be fresh. I don't want it to be stale and talking about writing this many books. So it's really, really important to me to not have a cookie cutter kind of story. It takes a lot of time on one hand. I can write it in a week probably. Now, that doesn't include editing, obviously, but just to write the story. Once I have my the foundation of what's going to be about, like again, with Mike and me going to use that element from there. Once I have that, then I'm good. We have coming up any day now, we have one on diabetes that'll be out. And then before Christmas comes, that's the plan. Again, publishing this time of the year, it becomes a little tedious because of the holiday rush. And so it's on depression. It's called Madison's Sad Christmas. Will come out the beginning of December. And I have to admit, before I got involved with special needs, I would never have put the word depression in the same sentence as I would a child. It just didn't occur to me. But it's very, very real. It's a big, big problem in our world today. So that one's coming out at Christmas. It will be a Christmas story. And we actually had a delay in publishing for a while because my original illustrator had her 8th little darling, and she has some with special needs, but she was just overwhelmed and said, she goes, Margie, can't do it anymore. So it took me a while to find another illustrator that would be able to carry on her style because the critters were already created and I didn't want to change that. So we have an illustrator now who is equally amazing, but it took her a while to learn the program, especially the other illustrator used that whole thing to be able to get it down in copy. So we are back on track again, and they will be a lot more frequent next year than they were this past year.
Well, I don't know how they can get even more frequent because, again, I've seen your display. I've seen the listing that you have, and you've got so many different special needs covered. Your original illustrator is Jennifer Phipps, and she has done a great job of making the animals look so realistic. There are some that I've looked and I've had to really bore in and see, okay, is this a photograph that she sketched around, or is this her really illustrating some of the animals? I mean, because for example, the concert, the raccoon, I had to do a double take. Actually, I think I did a triple take to see, is that a photograph and then she sketched around it? But they're very, and the I think it actually is another prairie dog, very realistic. And then when Liliana moves to the country, what's interesting is, she takes Down syndrome, which is very characteristic facial features, and tries to transpose that on the mountain lion. And it's very unique. It's very unique and very special. So I see the challenge in finding someone that you want to carry that on. It's wonderful.
Yes.
You mentioned the season. And right now, this series is a part of the sensory sensation, having a sensory sensational season. That's what we want right now. And talking about the senses, these are great ways, I think, using the 5 senses. You're reading visually, you're hearing, the very soothing. I've had people tell me I have a soothing voice in terms of reading it, but I think it can be very soothing to a child to just be read to, particularly a child who has special needs. I've used these in classrooms to educate folks. I shared this with a group, the Banquet Network. I spoke for them, and they're a group that helps make the worship experience more accessible. They work with churches to help churches make their facilities more accessible and welcoming to people with different abilities. And I shared with them this information, that the books and things, and immediately after I shared this, I had a teacher come up to me and say, I love reading information to my classroom and sharing different abilities with them so that the children are more aware before they leave. And she says, I have been looking for a series for my children. So I was very pleased to be able to introduce her to Paxton and all of Paxton's friends. What are some things that you would share about this newest book that's coming out in terms of senses and making it through the holidays? How is, especially diabetes, I love diabetes, talking about that during the holidays, because we get people that overload at the Thanksgiving and Christmas table, and then also talking about the sadness that can be experienced during Christmas. How can we help parents, children, educators during this holiday season in those two areas?
I think largely remembering that those kinds of things happen to children. And I think we forget that sometimes. I mean, as adults, and we have issues, it is, but we don't associate those same kinds of issues with our children. And like I said, especially depression. And depression is hard for going through either a family that's broken because of bereavement, because of death, because of divorce, and just the dysfunctionality of our families. And children sometimes really have a hard time with putting that all together in their brains and their hearts. So dealing with the sadness is important, and not to blow it over, not to just ignore it and say, they're just a child. How can they possibly have anything to be sad about? And again, I think I was there. You know, it did not occur to me that a child could be bad, that it would be labeled depression, but it really is. And as far as diabetes, I think you were spot on there. Yeah, it is definitely the season of food. And we went through all that sugar rush. And then when you compound it with all the Thanksgiving and Christmas traditional holiday foods, which are largely, it's just part of the tradition. It's part of what we do. It's part of our culture. And again, that same sugar overload. And sugar, honestly, for a child, and I hate to say it, but it's truth, sugar is poison. And, you know, they say it's more, and I think we forget that. And even as adults, you know, we get caught up in eating and the benefits, not the benefits, the problems that come from all that really manifest itself hugely in our kids as well as ourselves. So it is important to remember that taste only lasts for a moment. And, you know, we should be aware that you don't have to have a huge slice of pie to be able to enjoy it, as far as diabetes go. And again, you know, that the heart is very real when it comes to sadness. It's not something that a child, so we need to be sensitive to their needs, I think, is basically the line.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, the time that I've spent with your books has, again, allowed me to have more information about your personality, and it's allowed me to get to know you much better, which has been wonderful. But I would want you to share, as we're ending, what would be your recommendation if there is a person who says, you know what, this is exactly what I want to do, or I've already stumbled into this area. Like you said, you stumbled in, you know, you're an author of other books. They're not children's books, but you just felt like you just stumbled into and pulled into this area. What word of advice would you give to, again, a burgeoning author, or even a child who wants to be an author? I've met a couple of children authors, not children's book authors, but children authors recently. How would you recommend that they get started?
First of all, believe in yourself. Write every single day. It doesn't matter if you get published now or not. You need to write every single day. Do not give up. And it can be very, very difficult and discouraging. You know, I remember when I first started writing, the rejection slips were just, I wanted to cry every time I got one. You should have a thick ego, or not thick skin, and have a big ego. I hope I don't have a big ego. That kind of is not a good thing, I don't think. But to have a thick skin and know that letter does not mean their work, and that means you go back to it and you work on it again. Do not give up. Find something that you're passionate about. Write. I started to say write what you know, which is, and here I am writing a lot about things I don't know anything about as far as special needs. But when I sit down to write a book about special needs, something very, very specific, and research, and it doesn't mean you can't a lot about as long as you've done the research. And that's really, really important. And just write your heart. They say truth is stranger. I think in many ways that's true. And just, again, write your heart. People want to hear what's real. And that's the best route to go.
All right. Well, thank you, Margie. We appreciate this. I know that you are, during this time, we were able to catch up with you, and I know you're traveling. I'm not quite sure how far away, but we'll talk a little bit offline. But I know you're traveling, so I appreciate the time that you took. And I know the Wi-Fi wasn't as good as we wanted to be. The connection wasn't as good as we wanted to be. But the good thing is, for those who are seeing this through one of the live platforms, that's awesome. That's wonderful. I'm glad you're seeing it through the live platform. That's great. And you're getting it as is because it was during the live platform. But for those who are going to get this a little bit later, just know that what's going to end up happening is we're going to tweak it a little bit and make sure that it's as clean as it possibly can be. And so the folks will be able to see this in a full learning format. So I'm excited about that. So Margie, again, I know you've been traveling, and I wanted to say thank you so much. Thank you for introducing us to Paxton Prairie Dog, as well as all of his animal friends, Liliana, the mountain lion, and Micah the mink, and Brody, the badger. We're so excited to read about them and some of the other friends, especially for the holidays. So please, if you're interested, go to www.paxtonseries.com to learn more about Paxton and his friends, to meet them, including all of the different family members and colleagues and friends who are sharing about a variety of different abilities. What I will say, I usually do try to share this, and sometimes I remember and sometimes I don't, but I did want to share these offers because I do share them. So again, this is for folks who do participate in these live trainings. What I do is, because I value you being here and participating so very much, because of that, what I try to do is I like to give you some extra special offers. Okay. So one of the things that we're doing, and some of these are related to the work that Margie Harding is doing, and some of this is related to the work that I do. So for one of the things that I do is I do offer people the opportunity to participate in future trainings. And I wanted to share that right now. So what you're going to see that's getting published on the screen right now, more training. So if you want to learn more about the work that Margie is doing, definitely check her out at www.paxtonseries.com. If you want to learn more about other interviews or other trainings that I will be doing, you can go to the link that's there. I do believe it's going to send you basically to the website, which is behind me. I'm going to move over a little bit so you can see it. It's www.drbergina.com. The Lead Life LLC, that's my psychiatric practice. So if you need that and you're in one of the states that I'm licensed in, that's what that's for. But the Dr. Bergina is more for the consulting work that I do, including offering trainings and opportunities like this. We've already talked about the going into this holiday season and having a safe sensory sensation. And I'm going to be speaking on December the 1st at the Church at 7 Run about caring for the caregiver. So if you've got questions about that, you can find me on Facebook, or again, you can go to the website, and that information is going to be coming up. We are waiting. We want to be decent in the order. We're just waiting for the pastor of that church and that committee to give us the official social media postings that they have. I've seen some of the temporary ones or the preliminary ones, but as soon as I get access to the full official social media posting, it will go on that training site. But I wanted to share for those who are watching, that's the information there. Okay. And last but not least, because I like giving things away, and every single interview that I do, we give something away. Okay. So I will tell you that if you reach out to me, what I am going to do for my part, what I'm doing is I'm giving a 30-minute strategy session away. So I know there are some parents who are struggling right now. I know there's some parents who are dealing with some of these things, and maybe you have one of Margie's books and you've read it and you've said, oh, this is so great. I didn't know this is helpful. This is helping me share information. But you know what? I am still struggling in this area myself, and I'm feeling overwhelmed, and I'm not getting it all done together. And folks who are in our Autism Alignment Movement Facebook group, that's the #1 requested piece of information from me is, how do I keep it all together? Well, I offer strategy sessions for folks, and we talk about your most pressing concern, your most pressing, okay? We talk about your most pressing concern, and we talk about ways that you can get yet most pressing concern literally conquered in 90 days or less. So if you're interested in that, you just sign up for a call for that coaching session. You can find the sessions at www.drbergina.com / I think it's work with me. It might be work hyphen with me. If you go to the main website and click on that, then you can schedule some time to work with me, and you're entitled to a 30-minute session. So if you already have a session scheduled, let me know that you watched the webinar, you watched this video, and in courtesy of Margie, because I love her coming and taking the time to do this, I'm going to give you 30 minutes of my time, because she's given us 30 minutes of more than 30 minutes of her vacation time. Of course, I'm going to give you 30 minutes of my time. So if you're interested in that, if you're in the webinar section, you just go ahead and you just sign up, and you'll be able to see the information. If you are not, if for whatever reason you're not in the webinar right now and you're seeing this, not in the live replay, but as not in the live session, but as a replay, again, go to that website and sign up through email, and you can connect with me and let me know that you saw this and that you're interested in taking advantage of that session. And we are going to see about getting you a copy of one of these books. So let us know which book you're interested in, and we're going to work together to see if we can get folks copies of these books, because I really want folks to take advantage of this and learn, especially about the diabetes and the depression. When are they going to be coming out, Margie? Do we have dates for those yet?
Well, not specific dates. The diabetes one should be ready any day. Maybe a week. I'm hoping a week. The depression one won't be ready until the beginning of December. Hopefully, the plan is for the beginning of December. It completely depends on the publishing track. We have it about ready. It's just getting it done, again, with the whole publishing time frame and the season. So it kind of delays things. Sometimes it's very, very rapid. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer.
Okay. All right. Well, there you go. There you have it. So within the next month or two, that was one of the reasons we scheduled a time now, because we knew that one would be out or very close to being out. And then we also knew that in December, right in time for Christmas. Okay. So I can't think of a better, the best gifts that I give are knowledge and education. I will tell you that. Okay. So I can't think of a better gift than these types of books, because they're giving information and they're also giving hope. So I think that's wonderful. Well, again, Margie, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate you. And we are hoping to have you back once you come up with some even more great titles, because like you said, you've got more good stuff coming down the pipe in 2019. Can't wait.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right. You guys have a very blessed day on purpose. Take care.